Good morning, brave people. I will try to convince you today that integrating Nextflow into the official curriculum of courses at university is not only an engaging as well as challenging experience, but very functional to reaching the intended learning outcomes of the courses. For this, I will give you a bit of context, explaining what the learning outcomes are for the courses I'm talking about. Show you how Nextflow is key in reaching those learning outcomes, and then discuss about the details of how we implemented Nextflow into our teaching at the University of Pavia. So let's start with the context. We have a Master of Science, so 2 years divided in 2 semesters in Italy, each of the years. The Master of Science is called Molecular Biology and Genetics, and we have a curriculum which is called Molecular and Digital Biology. The curriculum is dedicated to teach this kind of hybrid, integrated, mixed education with content of molecular life sciences and data science as well, and bioinformatics. So in this context here, we have 2 courses, one that I teach from the second semester of the first year, and one that Mariangela is teaching at the first semester of the second year. They are meant to be one following the other, so they are integrated in each other. In the first one, we have as intended learning outcomes data structures, statistics and modeling, and teaching them how infrastructures, computational infrastructures, work. And then the second course follows the first one and is more bioinformatics focused. And here the learning outcomes are biostatistics, analysis methods specific for some biological applications, and the interpretation of the biological results. So why did we choose to use Nextflow in class in order to reach these intended learning outcomes? Well, Nextflow has several key values, among which there is portability, reproducibility, and the fact that it is agnostic versus different kind of programming languages. So the portability is a very good thing of Nextflow to allows us to use Nextflow in order to teach our students how to use the infrastructure, how to use both HPC on-premise and the cloud, and how to move seamlessly between the 2 types of infrastructures. The reproducibility feature of Nextflow allows us to focus on the methods that we employ, both for statistics and for bioinformatics, and to focus on the data structure, so to teach our students how to choose the right methods, how to implement them in their analysis. And the fact that Nextflow is agnostic versus different programming languages gives us the freedom to choose the tooling we need for the kind of application we are teaching, and to focus on the languages we have selected for the course. And in particular here, we will be talking about R. So how to include Nextflow in our teaching? We need basically to bring students that have a peculiar biological background, educational background, from zero to hero in the data science part. So we really need to start from the basics here. We start by teaching them the basics of Bash, very gently, approaching the terminal. Then we teach them R, and then we explain them about the containers, and we teach them how to use Docker and Singularity. Once we've done that, then we start discussing the infrastructure. We explain how to use a local HPC, and then we build on that knowledge to move on to the cloud, and we have used Google Cloud in our education. Once they have the foundation for this type of information, then we start introducing Nextflow, and then particularly in the second course, in the second year, then they can use NF Core pipelines for specific biological applications. So we basically cover 3 big categories: the coding, the infrastructure, and then the orchestration of the analysis. Now, in this framework, of course, we need to select specific content. There's lots of training material for Nextflow, so what did we choose in particular? The basics. So we start teaching them the principle of Nextflow, and we focus here on the data flow part because it's really important to build their mindset in order to understand what a pipeline is and how it works. And then we focus, of course, on the basics of the syntax and the structure of a workflow. The most important thing of what we designed here is a problem-solving approach. So the idea here is to give the students, along the different teaching experiences we have, a problem, which can be in the beginning a statistical problem, a data science problem, and then a biological problem later on. And then from that kind of problem, understand how they can solve it by using the appropriate workflow, and then choosing the appropriate compute infrastructure. Particularly on the second year, then we focus on the biology, and then we use especially these two pipelines, SARC and RNA-seq, to understand how to solve more complex biological problems. Implementing the courses. So we have everything on GitHub. All our content is available on GitHub in different repositories. We focus entirely on creating containers for different parts of the learning experience. And in this sense, Docker and particularly Wave has been extremely instrumental into doing these. So we build container environments that can serve the purposes of the different things we are teaching in these two courses. And then besides the very small local HPC, then we heavily use computing in the cloud, particularly thanks to this program of Google Education Credits that allows us to give students a voucher that they can use to set up their own environment and control their own budget. And this is also very good to teach students how much things cost, to estimate the cost of their analysis and to keep an eye on their own budget as well. And we have made all of these automatic in the sense that they give us ownership of their project, and then we remotely configure all their environment to be to implement the APIs that are needed to run Nextflow. Now, one incredibly important thing that I feel is often underestimated when creating teaching and learning experiences is simulating the data. This is crucially important, not only because you want to simulate data that run quick enough for the teaching experience to happen, but also because in our view, it's really important to create a storyline. A storyline is essential, I think, especially for people that come from a biological background, to show them that there is a goal into what they're making an effort into learning. And it's also essential for us to give them proper feedback while we teach some of these topics, as well as creating the proper assessment setup at the end of the course. So we know what we have simulated, and we also create a story that allows the student to get to a point where they need to interpret the data, and they can find the right interpretation in biological knowledge, databases, searching for things, looking at the gene that they have found. This is not an easy task. We have an entire team that is dedicated to simulate all of these data sets. Eugenio, Davide, and Lorenzo that are here in the room as well. And we use Nextflow a lot on this part as well, because it's simulating data is not always as successful as we would like for the goals we want to achieve in the learning experiences. So we also have lots of Nextflow pipelines to validate the data set, to filter out things that are not necessarily what we intended to. We use AI to generate scenarios, so I'm very curious to see if we can use Sakera AI for this part as well. And this is also the reason why we are contributing, for example, to the variant simulation pipeline in NF-Core, because we really believe that the simulation part is not just for benchmarking of a method or a tool. This is also resulted in a couple of tutorials that we contributed to NF-Core repos on SARC and RNA-seq that run entirely on a Gitpod environment and that allow people to follow this sort of problem-based approach and storyline that I was mentioning. In the SARC tutorial, you have to find a specific disease-causing variant, and you go through the interpretation phase there. And in the RNA-seq tutorial, you reach the point where you need to do an enrichment analysis and interpret the results of that. So in conclusion, I think I give you some inputs to show that we can use Nextflow really to achieve the intended learning outcomes of our teaching goals. But also that Nextflow is a very good learning path in the sense that if we want to teach Nextflow and we need to start from the basic, it really helped us to design a learning experience where we build things from scratch, brick by brick, and then we get to the point where they can actually learn Nextflow principles and syntax and structure. Very importantly, I think this kind of course design have to be reproducible, and they should allow to be shared. This is something that I remember we discussed with Phil a couple of years ago, the idea of some sort of Nextflow Academy or Nextflow 4 Academy, where we can have a place where people can actually share and exchange this kind of material. And this is something that I really believe in, because in reality the problems we have in integrating these kind of topics in university teaching are the same everywhere. It's not very different in Pavia than in other universities. All the materials I've been talking about are available in this page I'm linking here. We've linked all the repos and the content, also the configuration scripts that we have for the cloud environments, so you're free to reach out and copy, paste them, reuse them as you please. And I would like to hear from many of you about other materials you might have created and we might have to exchange. So with these, I would like to thank in particular the people from my lab, and most of them are here, those in the picture that you see, that are also helping us in creating the simulations and the content that I've been talking about today with you. I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you.
That was a great talk, Francesco. You know, this is a topic close to my heart, so very happy to see that. There's a number of questions. We'll go to just two. One is, from a practical standpoint, you're equipping these students, giving them vouchers and throwing them at Google Cloud. How do you control the cost, and what do you do if a student blows their allocation on the first day?
So we don't really control the costs, and that's the advantage of using this solution, in the sense that you don't have a project where you need to worry how much the students are going to spend. Probably the thing we really automated is the configuration of the environment. Once they give us the ownership of the project, then you just have a loop where we run a script and configure all the APIs. Since day one, we tell them that budget is a thing. We show them where to see the budget in the cloud console, and then we sort of highlight that they shouldn't keep VMs up if they're not using them. So that's the basic rule that they should apply.
That's fair. What if they run out?
Well, if they run out, technically speaking, we can request for an additional voucher. I must say that it probably happened only once.
Oh, okay.
So students tend to be very budget aware.
That's very good. Sounds like a good educational experience in itself. And the other one that I'd like to surface, how do you measure and test the students' knowledge at the end? Like
okay, so this depends. So in Italy, it's not mandatory to do multiple choice questionnaires. Mm-hmm. So in my case, we have so a written assignment where it takes several days to run the analysis and then prepare the interpretation. So we give them 1 week at home to prepare a written assignment, and they submit it. And then we have an oral examination where they discuss the results of the assignment and the interpretation, and we have a grid of evaluation of criteria where we measure the final grade.
Sounds reasonable. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's a lot more questions on Slack,
yes.
as you can imagine, so if you can...
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.